Hi, I'm Trevor Conkergood, and I'd like to introduce you to the Floriani Skech app for the iPad, and we believe this is the perfect companion for our Skech desktop software because you'll be able to sketch designs with the comfort and ease of the iPad on the go, whether it's from your favorite chair in the house or at the doctor's office. You'll always be able to sketch your embroidery. And then the cool thing is you'll be able to share that design back to your desktop software and do any number of different things to it, including, of course, saving it to all the different popular embroidery machine formats and sewing your design out. And so just a quick look at the basic functions of the software in this video. Looking at the desktop up at the top, the first thing you'll notice on the top left is 3 small dots. And if I select on those 3 small dots, this is where I would go to start a new empty workspace, or open a design that I've been working on, or save a design that I'm working on, or save the design as with a new name. This is where you can get to your settings. This is also where you can enter your software license key, which basically pairs your desktop software to your iPad, and the About key that you can learn about what version of the iPad app that you're currently using. I will say that this is one of the earliest versions of the iPad app, and that we have many changes in store for the app in the coming days and months. But just at the very beginning, this is what exactly it looks like. There's a little red arrow beside that, and that will be a select key. Beside that, there's the zoom and the pan options. Next, you have undo, redo, delete. Now we have a button to fill your screen, or a 1-to-1, an actual size button. Now we're moving into the ability to, sorry, I'll zoom back out like that because I got way too zoomed in so you can't even see my picture anymore. But this is actually an image that's on my screen right now, not an actual sketch. And so the idea is you can select an image from your photo library to put onto your screen, and whatever image you put onto your screen is the one that now you can sketch on. And so once you put an image on your screen, this is like the on-off button to view that image on your screen, and the next button is to select the image that's on your screen. And once you have an image selected, that would give you the ability to resize and change the proportions of that image if you wanted to. And once you've got it sized to the size that you want, you would use your magnifier to zoom in and the pan tool to move over and essentially get it, to a point where you're ready to sketch on it. And so perhaps before I get into sketching onto this photograph, I'll just click on New Empty Workspace again and discard all that and show you what the different types of brushes are. And so really there's a little blue widget here, and when you click on the brush to selector, it shows you all the different types of embroidery that you can create. And so down at the bottom, the first choice is run stitch. The second choice up that line is for a bean stitch. Now you have an option to do a fill stitch, and then a steel stitch, pressure sensitive steel, calligraphy, and tapered ends. And so I'll go ahead and click on tapered ends and then just click and drag to draw a line. And notice that my line has kind of a pointy end to it, and so I can draw these lines just by clicking and dragging with my finger on the workspace, or if you have an iPad that uses an Apple Pencil, then that will also work. And so for example, now looking just to the right of the 3 dots at the top, there's the arrow, red arrow. That's your select tool. And if I click on a shape, I can select it. In fact, I can select any of the shapes I've previously made, and I could look over on the right-hand side where there's a properties box. And so even though I've drawn these tapered ends, I have the ability to adjust things like the width of the line, thicker or thinner, and I have the ability to adjust the density to have less or more space between the rows of stitches. And you can also interact with the tapering to just be both ends or one end or the other end, and what angle shall the stitches go on. And there's 2 different ways to do that. And so the point is, just when you draw something, you click and you choose a brush selector and you draw it, but later you can select that and interact with the settings for it. Now you can also interact with the settings on the fly. So notice when I click on that tapered end brush, beside it on just a little further down, I have a little width selector, and this shows me the current width that I'm going to make, and it allows me to select a new width so I can make that column fatter or more narrow while I'm working on the fly. And I can also adjust the stitch spacing with the other setting. So now I can make more space between the rows of stitches or less space between the rows of stitches. And again, it's your select tool, the red select tool, that allows you to select these areas. You can select them and move them. You can select them and resize them. You can even click and drag to make a box to select multiple of them. If you want, you can click and drag a box to select all of them. And now at the top toolbar, I've got my undo button and the redo button. I also have a delete button, and I can delete everything or hit undo and put it all back again. Notice when I click on the zoom tool that in the properties box, it shows me the scale, and I can click on that to zoom in and zoom out, or even just click and drag on that zoom scale box to make it get closer. And if I change it to in, then when I click on the workspace, it goes in. If I change it to out, when I click on the workspace, it goes out. And in general, if I change from the zoom tool to the red hand, now I have the pan tool. And so the idea is you might zoom in and get zoomed in closely. So get closer, 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 and then switch to the little red hand and pan around so that you can see exactly what you're making. And at any time, click on a tool and draw some more embroidery. But now you can see the embroidery that you're creating much more closely, and you'll be a lot more intimate with any artwork that you might be working with. Now, you don't have to only sketch all in one color. So just as an example, down at the bottom, I have a color palette, and I can choose, a dark color, and then choose the red, and then choose the orange, and choose the yellow. And so the software has a color palette at the bottom, and you can, to the left of the color palette at the bottom are 3 dots. And if you choose those 3 dots, it will show you several different color palettes that you could work with. And so if I load up the Floriani Poly color palette, now at the bottom I can scroll through all 360 different shades of the Floriani color palette. And so once you find, the color that you want, you can basically just select it and start drawing with it. And so I'll select the color blue and draw, and now I'm drawing in the color blue, or maybe select a different color of blue and click and drag. And so this is the concept that you choose a color, you click on your brush selector to choose this type of embroidery. And so let's try the calligraphy instead. And now when I draw a line, and maybe we'll just zoom in a little more closely to my stitches, and then turn on that calligraphy and click and drag so that you can see how, let's get a darker color also, so that you can see how it makes a thin side and a thick side. And so in that case, again, you have the ability to adjust the thickness of your lines, but it makes the calligraphy with a thick side and a thin side. Now, if I use my select tool and I select a calligraphy piece, now I have the ability to also adjust the angle that the calligraphy is happening at. And so essentially you could come in here and click on that box and type in a number. Let's see here. And I can bring the angle up and down as well with the slider. Like this. And I think I have to click right on here. Yeah, if I want to type in, put my prompt in there, and then I have my iPad, I have a keyboard, and so now I can basically say delete, 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 and I can type in, whatever angle that you wanted it to be, and hit enter, and it will adjust to exactly that amount. And so again, you have adjustments for things like the tapering and as well as the angle type. And so this is how it works. Let's click on new, empty workspace again, kind of like a fresh page to sketch on, if you will. When you sketch, you can also do a pressure sensitive. So in this case, the lighter I press, the less it will get, and the harder I press, the thicker it'll get. So you can kind of have a thick and a thin, depending on your iPad and what you're drawing with. Because if you have, for example, an iPad Pro with a nice new Apple Pencil, then the pressure sensitive is much more greater than using kind of my older iPad style like I've got here. The next tool type is a straight steel stitch, so it doesn't get thicker or thinner or have any calligraphy or any special abilities, just a straight up satin column. The next one is a fill. So now when you draw a shape, it actually fills your shape in with thread and not just an outline of the shape. And with fill or some of these other ones, you do have the ability to click from the pen, drawing mode, to basic shapes like hearts, And so if you're doing hearts, you're probably going to want to scroll through your color palette and find a nice color of red or pink to do your heart in. And so you choose your heart color and you make your hearts. But if you change that to diamonds or stars, well, then you're probably going to want gold for your stars. And so you go, switching through and try and find a nice gold for your stars. Down at the bottom, you have some different ways of viewing. So you can turn on and off your grid. You can turn on and off the stitches. You can turn on and off the outlines or the vector artwork that got created by your artwork. The 3D tool is currently not working, but I'm sure it will be working with the next build. It was working with the previous build, and that is how you would turn 3D on and off as well. And so the one thing we haven't looked at is images and how you can maybe work with images. And so if I click on new workspace again and kind of clean up my workspace, you'll see that up at the top over to the right, the first button is called open or choose image. And so you can either take a photograph or just go to your photo library and select some kind of a recent photograph and put that onto your screen to work with. So the first tool is the open image. The next one is the display image. So that's like an on and off button to seeing your photograph. And the final button here at the top is actually to select the artwork. And in that way, you could change the size of the artwork or the orientation or the location of the artwork. And so that's kind of how that works. And so once you get your artwork to the size that you want and in the location that you want, you're probably just going to simply click on one of the tools of the workspace and choose a fill and choose to draw a fill. And then, go ahead and select purple and click and drag to draw the little purple shape. Now, notice that I'm currently zoomed out quite far, and so it's very difficult to be accurate with drawing my shapes. And so this is where you might want to use your zoom tool to zoom in to a more sort of like higher scale so that you can get a closer look at what you're going to draw. And then you go back to your tools and you say fill and you choose, a pink color might be over here. And you simply click and drag to draw your shapes. And so now body position kind of becomes helpful because I'm kind of sitting at a desk right now and it's not as comfortable to hold the iPad and draw as it could be. But the idea is I can create quick fills like that. I could switch over here, do run stitches, click to a dark color, start drawing the outline colors of the design as well. And so really it's pretty easy to create your own embroidery by tracing over top of photographs like this. I'm kind of going fast right now, so I'm just really making a mess of it all. But you get the idea that this is how it works. Now, if you want to start a new design, you can say new at any time, but you can also save your designs. And so, for example, let's put another photograph on my screen, just some of the ones I was using to play with for testing and whatnot. But to be able to sketch something like this, first of all, I'm probably going to want to zoom in, right? So we'll zoom in until we get enough of that little design on our screen that we can see it, with some accuracy. And then basically you're going to choose your brush selector, and I just went with a single run line for this. Maybe choose some color that'll make it easy to see when you're sketching, and then start to draw the lines. So I'm going to move over the screen just a tiny bit with my panning tool, and then choose on the run stitch option, choose on the color red, and start sketching. And from here, you can zoom in really closely to be accurate, but I think whatever I do right now, it's probably going to look like a dandelion, to me. So maybe I'm not going to fuss over it so much. But what I am doing is kind of going in and out with the lines. In other words, I'm trying not to let go of the pen on the paper, because I know that the more I let go with the pen on the paper, then the more chance for jumps in my embroidery design. And so, if you get an area here that has more, you can just sketch a little extra. I don't know. Whoops. that was a little off right there, but there's going to be the ability to edit these things. Right now, certainly I have lots of capability to edit when I save it to my desktop. But if you want to, come in and do some editing within the iPad app, some of the editing tools are coming again in the future. So we're looking for a reshape tool right now, and that's going to be kind of a coming soon tool. But this is our first look at the Sketchbooks app and how it works. Let's go ahead and click on New Workspace again. Let's just play with it and, maybe write my name. And so when you create a design like this and you want to save it, you'll simply choose File and Save or Save As. And so give it a name, Trevor 2, because I think I've already written my name once. And when you create a design like this, if you wanted to open it again, you simply choose Open, and it gives you a little drop-down list. And so now I've got Trevor and Trevor 2, and so I can open up my name the last time I drew it, and it looked like that. And so at any point in time, you can go back to the designs that you've opened. When you select a design to open it, if you don't want this Trevor design anymore, you can even click here to delete it. And so now it's gone from the list, and the only one I can open is the Trevor 2. And so you go ahead and open up Trevor 2, and that comes back onto your screen like that. And so you have the ability to also save the design and share it to your computer. And so to do the sharing to your computer, first of all, you're going to need to choose the option for license key. And you're going to put in here your Sketch-A-Stitch actual license for your desktop software. And that kind of pairs the two up so that when you share the design to your computer, it will obviously open up and work. And so just so for example, where I say open, if I choose Trevor 2, I now have a button to share it. And when I choose share, it's going to give me all of the different types of share options that I have with an iPad. And so probably the most logical thing would be to email it to yourself, because that'll get it kind of from the iPad onto the computer. Now, if you happen to own a Mac computer, you might want to just airdrop it to yourself. Or maybe you've got a Dropbox account and you just want to save it into your Dropbox, and then you can open it up from there on your desktop software. Anyway, the options of how you send it to your computer kind of depend on the things that you've installed on your iPad itself. And so if you don't have Dropbox on your iPad, then that wouldn't, of course, be one of the options that are available. But if you've set your iPad up with the capability of sending an email, then that's probably an easy way to do it, is just basically send yourself an email and attach that file onto it. Anyway, you guys, we will create more training for the new Sketch-A-Stitch iPad app, but I wanted to create a new quick overview video to get you guys started. And so I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so very much for listening, and bye for now.